So, if you were there in our last stream, apologize. Computer decided it just wanted to take a dump, and it just wanted to just... It was like a what's that person? What's the kind of type of person that falls asleep out of nowhere? Narcoleptic?
I think so.
Yeah, that's what my computer does.
I'm just gonna say it had a heart attack. I think it'd be the better way for it.
My computer had a heart attack, and I was just like, no. Wake up. Good Lord, dude.
After 10,000 years, we've finally gotten an artwork again.
After 10 stinking years.
After 10,000 years, I'm free. It's time to conquer Earth.
Well, if you missed the other stream, which wasn't like but 5 minutes long until my computer decided it wanted to randomly crash, we're having all 42 cars that have participated in every test from Montreal and Phillips Island that are here, except the only person that is not here that was participating in those tests. Drum roll, please. Garrett Sidner. He is not here. Garrett Sidner is not here. Hero Motorsports entered a third car for this test. James Shelley is behind the wheel. He will be in the 27 Ford. So to recap and to basically recycle what we were just talking about and repeat what we were just saying, the oval. We've been here at Atlanta many times before, so it'll be a little bit different as the other tests. The other tests we were testing on road courses and tracks we have never been to. Atlanta, we've been here many times in the series. Atlanta's a typical track that we've always been to, but a different package, different car, and for being an oval, we're here to see many different things. And DJ, what do you think we can expect from it?
We're going to see a lot of progress here, and really just the evolution of how these cars have pretty much progressed and how the programs for each of these individual teams can come into play here. Whether we'll see some improvements, some adjustments maybe, or maybe some cars just not getting as good as anticipated based on their own goals. That is something we're going to have to look forward to when it comes to the lap times here in this testing session here. Though they may be quick runs though, but some may focus on race pace here, maybe how they can get that car much better in terms of handling and grip when it comes to the race, once at least the regular season comes into play.
I think a lot will come down in this race, or not this race, this test will come to drafting. Drafting, really trying to see where the tire wear falls with the tires and the car, what way it handles. I'm interested to see what lines they take. I think the inside line will be the preferred line. We were just talking about that a little earlier before it cut away. The inside line, I believe, they're going to run for majority of the session. They may move up a little bit as
more in the middle group too
as it moves on, but I am very interested to see in this hour test who prevails, who has the speed, especially on the ovals, because there is a bunch of road courses for this season. However, still dominated by the ovals, and being fast on the ovals will still be very crucial.
Certainly, no doubt. That's where really a lot of the Ford and Chevy teams can pretty much showcase their power here. We haven't really seen too much from Toyota, but we're going to have to wait and see once the testing session comes into play here, whether those Toyotas have really picked up the pace here. Remember, I think we've mentioned, I don't think we've mentioned much about it, but in terms of the Auto Club testing session, though not with footage, the Toyotas kind of struggled a lot on speed because, you know, it's such a lot of straightaway speed basically on Toyota, not as much compared to the Chevys and the Fords here. Again, we're going to have to really see how this comes into play, and as you mentioned, draft is going to be pretty fundamental.
Cody Lamas in the number 5, we're focused on him right now. He is quickest by over at least a tenth on Jesse Turner. Dylan Schwellenberg there in 3rd. Matthew Rodriguez 4th best. Times continuing to change. It's still very, very early as we see Sanford, Mace, Hernandez, Young, and Caps in the top 10. However, Ryan Griffin jumping to the top. Is that a surprise to you?
No big surprise whatsoever. Ryan Griffin, as I mentioned in several other testing sessions, has been very confident with that 43 car, and it's showing here today yet again. Ryan Griffin, just a guy to look out for this season. Maybe we're overhyping him a bit too much, but there's every right so, because he has just put those timing scores on fire.
Griffin, last lap in turn 3 and 4, I watched him. He was up the track, like in the middle of the racing surface. He was a bit ways up the track, and his teammate Ryan Acosta's up there now. You see him running a little bit higher than usual. Griffin had to go around Fitzwater and Martin to go around a little bit lower, but that was an interesting line for the 43 of Ryan Griffin. He ran a pretty good lap last lap, running up a little bit higher up in the lanes.
Yeah, a bit interesting though. The middle groove is also kind of a good area to find your race car, find that grip on those tires. So some drivers, like you mentioned, really, like as we really have said a lot of times, the inside line's kind of been the way to go at this track, but a lot of drivers have been kind of experimenting with that middle groove there. But again, tire conservation is going to be one of the big keys here at Atlanta Motor Speedway here, as you see him trying to get around his own teammate of Ryan Acosta, or at least, well, just trying to get around him, to say the least. They're maybe practicing some passing when it comes to race time later on.
Ryan Acosta is 13th best, a little up ahead. Teammate Chris Dodd's on the racetrack in 19th. And I think Dodd will be interesting to see where he is in terms of pace, because when it comes to Griffin, especially Griffin and Acosta both, Dodd has just not been up to pace with the teammates, and I am a little bit surprised by that.
I don't think I'm as surprised, though, as you are, but, I mean, Chris Dodd hasn't really had the best season, really the best rookie season when he was in the Martin camp, and with him having, you know, that injury, I don't know if it's really hurt him or not, but we'll have to see here. He was looking forward to the intermediate tracks here, as well as maybe the short tracks, and maybe the next coming testing sessions in the future, but Chris Dodd might be able to maybe get some better lap times this time around compared to that of the road courses.
See here, second fastest Chevy on the board. Dylan Schwallenberg, 4th best. Possibly a little help due to the draft, but you got to think everyone is getting a little bit of a chance to run in the draft as well. Schwallenberg, 4th best. His teammate Hernandez just outside the top 10 in 11th.
Really just showcases the amount of improvement some of these teams put into play here. Jordan Davis in that 5th position there. Matt Rodriguez still representing that Toyota camp really well in that 7th spot. So we'll give a bit of a shout out to Matt Rod yet again. He's been kind of the face of the Martin Motorsports camp as of recent. So looking really good for the Toyota camp here. Looks like they're representing really well here. Martin Motorsports looks like they're adapting to that Toyota motor pretty well at the moment.
Matthew Rodriguez has been the fastest Martin Motorsports guy in all the sessions. He's been able to outpace all of his teammates. Dom Capps is 2nd best so far. He's down in 11th. But a little further down, 3rd best Martin Motorsports car is John Hart. He's in the top 20 in this session so far. Not even 10 minutes in, though. He is 19th, and Curtis down in 21st.
Yeah, we're only just started the session here, so again, there's still plenty of time here. We're going to see a lot of, probably some more drivers climb their way up through the charts here, similar to that of Phillip Island here. So we saw a lot of drivers near the literally the latter half of the session, literally coming clutch with those lap times at the end, like Jeffrey Vingai, for example. He got up to 2nd quickest by, I believe, by the end of the session. So we're going to see some drivers probably come upwards in the charts here, maybe trying to find some good setups here, maybe experimenting. But again, new tires are going to be a big thing here. See Charles Sanford getting around Jordan Fisher there. See some cars also coming down pit lane, probably also doing some mock pit stops here. So you also have to put that into consideration there. But Sanford kind of in a bit of a wad right now there with Fitzwater in front there, Martin up top, and Fisher not too far behind. So the Fisher cars are kind of running together yet again.
I know it's only not even 10 minutes in, but Mace Enterprises, all of them, all 4 cars, are sitting there in the top 10. Cody Lamas is 2nd. Sean Harple there in 6th. Mace is 7th. And Charles Sanford is in 10th. Mace Enterprises continuing to be very strong in testing.
It really does showcase just the amount of sheer power that team has there. They have a very good lineup. I think I've always also mentioned that as well. They just have a really solid lineup for the 2019 season here in Charles Sanford. As you mentioned, in the 10th position there in terms of times at the moment. Again, Sanford kind of finding some good sparks in his car. There's some smoke there.
Possibly something off of turn 4. I want to get a good view of what possibly... Oh,
Oh,
it looks like Johnny Gardner in the 32.
Bono might have had damage too. My brother's the best.
All I hear is that backup. It was like a pause there for a second. Yeah, boy! Bro, that was
It's a meme of the race, boys. Meme of the
okay,
session. Johnny
Johnny Gardner and John Bunnell. See here. Johnny Gardner just checked up right in front of Bunnell.
Might be like a mechanical issue for the 32 there. You see the car kind of stalled. I think the car actually just lost power all of a sudden, so John Bunnell just had no place to go in that 53 car there. We're going to see, watch the decrease of speed we're probably going to see here. Yeah, just all of a sudden it just kind of lost some power, and poor Johnny Gardner and John Bunnell were in a wreck as a result, so they're going to have to get to their backup test cars here so they can get some better laps in for them.
That is a shame for Red Stallion Racing and for Hood Huddleston Racing, trying to prepare for a good speedway car. So that'll be a few minutes out of their session done, but they'll be getting back out there and trying to compete. We've seen at Phillips Island, though, the Mace Enterprises backups were one of the fastest cars out there. So maybe Red Stallion and Hood Huddleston Racing have brought a backup just as good.
Yes, you know, yeah, hopefully so. Also want to know Jesse Turner is third quickest on the charts here with a 28.448 there. Jesse Turner, who, I mean, we're going to be as repetitive as we can with this one, but runner-up in the championship hunt here. He's just looking for more momentum here. He's got a fiery passion for that championship here, that second championship, I believe, for him. So, Jesse Turner's going to be hungry here.
He just blew by Charlie Smith there. Got to be a little concerning there for Charlie Smith, as him and Turner. That's a little concerning there for Fuel Brothers Racing to just be that off the pace of the 17 car of Turner Performance with Jesse Turner. Turner is nearly getting his best laps of the session, and Smith is a little off the pace. I'm sure he's been in a longer run. Turner possibly is on fresher tires, but we're not sure.
There's a big pack of cars right in front of him, kind of going like 2 wide, 2 rows deep there. Looks like Hernandez there. There's a Zayden Davidson, Dylan Young, and a Nick Mace there, our champion there, our recent champion Nick Mace there. 7th quickest at the moment there. Dejan Weeks making it 3 wide on the bottom there, trying to get around Luis Hernandez and Zayden Davidson together. And looks like he'll be able to there. Good pass from Dejan Weeks there. See Jesse Turner coming into the picture there, so they're having a little bit of a fun race at the moment here, maybe trying to experiment what they got here. Turner putting his nose underneath Hernandez there, and Hernandez has to give way there for that 17 car there, and Jesse Turner is going to take the spot away, at least the imaginary spot, to say the least.
Like we mentioned at Montreal and even at Phillips Island, here at testing too, these drivers, with this new car, it's very important to get out here and get with some other drivers and see where the passing zones will be, how your car reacts around other cars, and get familiar with this new car, because it's nothing like it was last couple years. New body, and it drives completely different. Ryan Griffin really quick. Cody Lamas is really quick as well, but then there's a big gap from like Griffin to like the 5th place, 6th place car.
Yep, no doubt.
Jeffrey Fengai was very quick late in the session at Phillips Island for Fengai Saitomi Motorsports. 16th on the board, kind of in the middle of Acosta and Dodd. You think maybe that's part of the car or the driver ability with how Acosta, Fengai, and Dodd, nearly the same engines, I would suppose the same engine. They're working together very closely with that alliance, but as you look, Griffin is about, I would say possibly, about half a second quicker.
I would say, it's, well, for Jeffrey Fengai's case, I'd say it's more driver ability. Remember that despite having the same affiliation in terms of engines, the chassis is what matters the most in terms of a lot of the race cars here, and that's what helps you in the handling of the corners there, how you get that car set up to drive around the racetrack like a track like this at Atlanta. Jeffrey Finga has a lot of talent for a reason. He's been a long time coming in the Sony Cup Series here. Had that win at Mosport literally this year, so Jeffrey Finga doing a great job there. Maybe just they're a bit overshadowed by Ryan Griffin, to say the least. There, Griffin kind of coming off a bit of a dismal season for Martin Motorsports. They're leaving the team and going to Allen Famer Racing Team. It looks like he's had a new wave of confidence for him. As I mentioned, Ryan Griffin just very happy with what he's got so far. Jeffrey Finga in mid-pack, which just sounds about where the 92 would be running in terms of a realistic goal.
Let's not forget that Finguy also finished second in this race at Atlanta in the 2018 race near the end of the season. So he knows how to get around here underneath of Dylan Schwellenberg. Schwellenberg on a little bit of a long-term run. Fourth best on there. We've mentioned him earlier. Dylan Young is 11th best. His teammates, Davis is there in 5th, while Dejon Weeks is in 9th.
And Dylan Young coming off of a pretty much a good late season charge for that 88 team there. He's going to be one to, I would say, to look out for. He's really good on the 2-mile racetracks there. I think you might have noticed that, especially at tracks like Michigan and Auto Club. And he loves Auto Club for a reason there. He considers it one of his best tracks in the Sony Cup schedule here. It doesn't really have much on the road courses here, so Dylan Young, he's got to figure something out in the road courses. But right now, he's not doing too bad at the moment. They're not too far off the top 10, but I would say Dylan Young could be one to look out for this upcoming year.
I want to look at some more drivers in the top 10 that we haven't really touched on a whole lot. Sean Harple got his first win in the Sony Cup Series at Chicagoland in a photo finish with DJ Curtis driving this 25 team, the 25 car for Mace Enterprises. He really stepped in this car a little past halfway in the season and he's really stepped it up, and he's ran very well for Mace Enterprises in this 25 car, and he's proving why he's a champion in the Hardy Series and why he's a future driver and a future winner and possibly champion contender with Mace Enterprises behind him. Harple really, I think, exceeding my expectations for him.
Oh, no doubt. I think a lot of us have really anticipated to see Sean Harple really shine out in terms of stardom. And as you mentioned, he did win the 2016 Hardy's National Series Championship, but ever since then, he kind of struggled within his career there. Probably just couldn't find the right ride to really showcase the actual talent he has in store. A car can't hold you back here based on how the team sets it up and everything. But push comes to shove, if you put the person in the right car, they're going to shine out really well, maybe even stick out more compared to the other competitors on the racetrack.
And here's one driver I think a lot of people were focused on heading into this test session, Caleb Hoffman for Turner Performance 33rd. He just ran his best lap, or no he didn't. He ran the exact same time to the 1,000th of a second, but it was a whole second off of his best lap. But Hoffman still 33rd.
Kind of comes to gives a bit of a question of whether I'm not saying that Turner Performance really mistreats anybody, or maybe they just don't have the best cars for at least half of that workshop there, because it could be like one of those scenarios in which one shop could be in one area and then the other shop in a different location, you know. But
if that's the case, the 17 or the 97 really doing well, but the 15 of TJ Martin and Caleb Hoffman running nearly the same exact lap times, 32nd and 33rd. Very, very disappointing for that second half of the Turner Performance team, the team that we expect to win races and battle for championships. But man, they're not even top 30.
It's like half of them are like, it's like a hit or miss, like a 50-50 shot with the Turner Performance car. Like, two of them will be really good. As you mentioned, Turner and Basinger are the powerhouses of the team, but for TJ Martin in this case, as he is literally debuting in the series, so a full-time deal, and Caleb Hoffman, there we go, they kind of struggled really. Hoffman missed up a couple of races there, or really more or less like one race to say the least, but that's kind of huge in a Turner Performance car though, even though he kind of wrecked in that session to really kind of not really justify where he could have ended up. And with Hoffman winning the Rookie of the Year, this is kind of concerning for the team, because a lot of fans expect, you know, the Turner Performance team to really be one of the top rides to be on, you know?
You would think getting a ride for Turner Performance, that would be one of the rides that would help you showcase your potential the most. But it is very concerning, at least right now. Martin jumping up to 29th, still not very impressive. But for Hoffman and Martin, it's just kind of concerning a little bit to me.
Yeah, and you look at some of the other young stars like Dylan Schwallenberg, Jake West, and though Jake West isn't really in the best equipment, Dylan Schwallenberg's 4th quickest. At the moment, the 2017 champion doing pretty stellar, and I'm kind of surprised to see KR doing that pretty well at the moment there. Though they did obtain the Athenian equipment, it's kind of surprising to see how far they've really evolutionized as a team. There, as you see Martin getting around, I believe that's Will Lewis in the 76 car. So, yeah, I mean, TJ Martin finished 2nd in the championship in the Hardy's National Series, similar to that of his father in the Sony Cup Series here. So,
I want to touch on the Turner Performance. I want to keep touching on the Turner Performance thing, but they're helping with Hero Motorsports a little this year. But the Hero Motorsports team are providing cars for this test session for Shelley, Jones, and Davidson, and Shelley's the quickest one of the bunch, and that's a little surprising to me, but not too bad, not too surprising, I would say, because Shelley is an experienced veteran of the Cup Series, but he is running full-time in the National Series for 2019. He's 26th on the board. Bobby Jones, 29th, while Zayden Davidson continues to be a little down the order, 37th, and I think that's a little lower than what I expected. He just jumped up to 29th, though, so that is good for him.
I think Hero Motorsports anticipated to be a lot faster with the switch to the Ford manufacturer, but they haven't really showcased much of that speed, though, so they're kind of maybe a bit ways backwards, to really say the least there, compared to what they were in the Toyota camp. Not to be rude, but the Toyota camp for them, they were a bit, I would say, statistically better in terms of times at the moment, but it doesn't really seem to be that for the Ford team at the moment, as they, like I said, they switched to the Ford camp. It's really kind of a bit fascinating, to say the least.
Now, they did have Bobby Jones top 10 at Montreal, but it is
road
a
course
little
experience, though.
Yeah, it is a little concerning, though, that the speed, the high-speed ovals, that they're not as quick on the ovals, it seems, that they're lacking a little bit there.
It is kind of weird. Yeah.
Looking a little bit at some other teams here, you see the Fisher Motorsports team. They ran very well in the road courses recently, but they are together once more, 27th and 28th, nearly identical lap times, but 27th and 28th for Fitzwater and Fisher.
I don't think that's really surprising, honestly, because that's kind of where the team will typically run in terms of the ovals and really these, not really the super speedways, more like the higher banks speedways, like, you know, the 2-miler racetracks there, like Auto Club and Michigan. But they can surprise, you know, maybe if there's an attrition rate race, they could be able to sneak into the top 15 in those races, because there have been some occurrences in where they can get up there, as well as the same thing as short tracks, because those won't be as power dependent and will be more based on driver skill.
Fuel Brothers Racing is the same team, similar to Fisher Motorsports, working close together with Toyota Power. They're just a little bit higher up on the charts than Fisher Motorsports. Not by a whole lot in terms of time, but they are together. DeLeo 24th and Smith 25th. It's
quite interesting, though, that how they decided to take that break from the Sony Cup Series there and then decide to come back all of a sudden. What do you think were the ideals behind that? Why do you think they decided to take a break for the time being?
I'm not even real sure the idea behind it, because they were so sure about selling the team off and giving it to Fisher Motorsports, and now they're back and trying to give it a go, and it seems as though they have not made any gains. They've stayed out of the whole 2018 season preparing for a new car, and Fuel Brothers Racing bringing the new car, thought that maybe they've had more time to work with it than any other team.
More of an advantage.
You would think they would have more of an advantage, but they are not really proving that to be the case. They are showing that they're about the same pace.
Look at that move on the outside there.
If not worse than what they were when they left in 2017. But Shelley, with new tires, really flying past that 47.
So there is some areas you can actually pass on the outside groove there. I think it's a matter of how the driver on the inside really fights you, because you could get a bit loose. Maybe you could tighten up in the corner there, in which the driver on the outside can really take the air off, because these new cars are rather sensitive in terms of aerodynamics. So if you get in that quarter panel, you could push them up the racetrack there or loosen them up, into which you can take an advantage and attack them. You see, kind of a bit like that, though that was more of a dive bomb on Kyle Collins there on Jake West, but you can really mess with the air with these race cars this time around there with the new body.
Collins is 33rd. He just passed Jake West on the track. West is just a position ahead of him. West is 32nd. Well, let's look at Collins and compare to his teammate. Collins is 33rd. Teammate Will Lewis is 21st.
Really a good transition for Will Lewis to say at least there. I don't think many really thought, because usually it's kind of hard to transition from the Hardee's National Series to the Sony Cup Series, though Will Lewis is no stranger to the Sony Cup side of things here. So I think it's kind of natural, I think, for Will Lewis to kind of find that pace again, but it is kind of surprising, though, especially after you've taken a bit of a hiatus from the series there, just to come back and to outperform a teammate like Kyle Collins there. Kyle Collins, I would consider a very good midfield warrior, but we haven't really seen much from that 86 car, though, but Horizon Group could bring some good surprises here for 2019.
Josh Crash in the Fitzwater Australian racing car, looking to get around the Horizon Group car, which is a little surprising to me, even though I know Will Lewis is on a little bit of a longer run, but Crash has also been on a little longer run. Crash, the only Fitzwater Australian car that is hitting the track. Sidner, like we mentioned, is not here. He is just ahead of Bunnell and Mills. That's the only cars he is beating. But we're going to shift our focus back towards the front of the timesheets. One driver that has joined the top 10, DJ Curtis for Martin Motorsports. He is now the fastest Toyota driver in 4th.
Looks like they found something within that Steel Tools car there in the 19 there. DJ Curtis, the 2017 champion and the season 13 champion. Looking really good for Martin Motorsports here. He was a bit doubtful about the switch to Toyota there. Initially came in with a Ford deal, but it looks like it might have paid off. Maybe Toyota has found something here in this intermediate program here, into which maybe Curtis might be eating those words later on, but right now he's 4th quickest there. Matt Rodriguez is still within the top 10 here, so Martin Motorsports looks like they're making some good ground here in terms of the development of the Toyota Camry.
Curtis looking really quick. He's got some, looks like he's got newer tires in comparison to a lot of other drivers. You see him like Harple, he's in the 30 seconds now, 7th best, but he is practicing a longer run, see how the car reacts as it moves on into a long run. Let's touch on some more drivers a little bit. Jordan Davis, we talked about him a little bit. He is one of the 3 drivers that are going to be fighting for 3 for next year. And when I say that, I mean 3 championships. Davis, Curtis, and Mace, all 3 of them are in the top 10 in this test session. But all 3 of them have the opportunity going into 2019 to break the history books and become a 3-time champion. We've never had a 3-time champion in the Sony Cup Series, and Curtis, Davis, and Mace all have the opportunity. Mace coming off being the recent champion, and then Curtis, 2017 champion, and Davis, 2016 champion. They all had championships in their early days as well to add on to a 2nd title. So they're going to give it a go in 2019 to try and break the record books.
Yeah, all 3 of them have good rides here for the season there. Again, we just literally saw the lap time of DJ Curtis there up to the 4th position there. So again, this is really a good indicator for Toyota as really a manufacturer here, because they kind of struggle within the intermediate program, but they really found something here in this test session here. So Martin Motorsports, again, like I mentioned, they might have found something there. Also could involve the chassis on that Toyota Camry as well, but all 3 of those drivers, as you mentioned, Mace, Davis, and Curtis, all looking for that 3rd championship here. They're going to be hard on the radar here for 2019 here. They all got good cars here, so might be a good battle. If we get all 3 of those within that championship fight, this is going to be a fun battle to watch here for 2019. But again, you can't count on all these other competitors here, because then all they do, or all they want to do, is win a championship as well. Maybe whether it's their 1st one or even their 2nd one here. Don't count those other drivers out.
One driver and one team I really want to highlight is the 90 team of Roush Family Racing. Jack Halleck getting some engines from Yamp Turner Performance, and they're 18th on the board.
That is a huge deal for Roush Family Racing here. And as you mentioned, they have those engines on their side, and they really found something with Jack Halleck here today. So what a fan! Oh man, made some contact there. That might have caused a bit of a tire up from Bobby Jones there. But man, as you mentioned, they're 18th quickest. What a sensational run for Jack Halleck here. That is one of the better improvements here. Jack Halleck might be a good fit for the team here. Seems like they have found some good chemistry within the pit crews here. Maybe giving some valuable data. You see him experimenting with that upper groove there, seeing he's catching on Dylan Schwalmberg here to see if maybe he can get a pass there. See Kyle Collins in the back there, but focusing back on Jack Halleck. He's just done a fantastic job of what he's doing. 18th quickest in such a rough transition from Hardy's. Remember, he hadn't had the best ride to really showcase that talent he has, and it looks like it might be the case here for Jack Halleck here today to showcase what he could be in terms of where he could run in the ovals.
Jack Halleck and Roush Family Racing Team. See new tires for Collins and Martin run up on these guys. But back to Halleck and Roush Family Racing Team. Roush Family Team really getting the engines that they need, but they did say that they're not getting the chassis and all the other technical support. However, some good engines that go along with them is going to help them a long ways, that they said. And man, it's showing off right now. In the top 20.
Just showcases that raw power that Ford engine has. And also, we do want to mention this in the Hardy's National Series side of things. They also do have Turner Performance engines as well. So they start off as near a lower mid-pack team, and now with them, they also obtain the Fear Sport chassis, the recently defunct Dodge team. They're going to be ones to look out for in the Hardy's National Series side of things. They could actually contest for some top 10s here, maybe some top 15s there, because that midfield battle in terms of that series is going to be very intense.
One driver that is one position just ahead, PJ Williams, 17th on the board, just behind Luis Hernandez on the sheets. We know Curtis Racing and CM Racing are one of the closer teams in terms of alliance on the grid. And Williams right on the toes of Hernandez and having good pace. He's not that far off. I mean, he's half a second off of Griffin, who's the fastest one out there. But Williams only a couple thousandths off of Hernandez.
Yeah, but it just showcases the relationship those two teams have together. Look at that big pack of cars right there. That is literally 10 of them right there. That's going to be fun to watch there. As you see, a lot of them just kind of all over the racetrack there. Josh Crash kind of leading that pack there. Merrick DeMax kind of trying to run away from that big pack there. Ryan Griffin pushing James Shelley there. Luis Hernandez, Bobby Jones, Nick Mace. Just a really huge fun puddle of cars here. Really just a huge pack of them all together in a blanket.
A big wad of cars. Bobby Jones, Will Lewis. There's Jake West, PJ Williams, Sanford Mace. All of them scrambling, trying to see how you can make moves in a big pack. You're going to have to figure that out in the race time, but we got loads of time till then. Johnny Gardner going to the inside of Mace. How about Will Lewis powering on the outside of Bobby Jones?
Yeah, really good move there from Will Lewis. You see PJ Williams, as we just literally talked about earlier, they're not too far behind the CM cars together. A lot of the team cars are pretty much close to each other. John Arndt right behind Nick Mace's quarter panel there. John Bunnell there, Zachary Fitzwater there, Jordan Fisher. Just a lot of different drivers and different faces in that main pack there. You see some cars kind of slowing down there, a couple of them zooming on by here. So we might see some cars, just the difference between new tires and old tires. No matter what car you have, I think the new tires are just going to be very important.
John Arndt in 23rd best. I think he is the slowest Martin Motorsports car again, and that is a little bit disappointing, at least for John Arndt. Even though he is the least experienced driver in that team, I think Arndt will slowly get things turned around for him when season comes around. Can't really judge speeds and testing, but you can get sort of an idea at least.
Yeah, you can get a bit of a benchmark into where those teams will place themselves when it comes to the actual races. So here at Atlanta, again, this is like a 1.5-mile racetrack as we talked about. It's going to be a bit of a factor here, as you mentioned, draft as well. So again, this is really a benchmark to where they could end up in terms of the actual race when it comes to that.
Nick Piercley's 37th on the board. His teammate Chris Louvier 39th. That is a little alarming for Blue Flare Motorsports, but right in the middle of them, Red Stallion Racing, a team that is kind of the satellite team to them. Johnny Gardner, 38th.
Yep. So they're not really doing too well at the moment, really. So it's kind of, yeah, you're right. It's a bit concerning. Whoa! There aren't, man, they rubbed, there's a car on the wall there. It's Dylan Schwallenberg there. He might have a flat tire on that 8 car. Either that or he really drove the corner a bit too hard there. So I'm not quite sure what happened to Dylan Schwallenberg there. So it looks like he might have, maybe the old tires just came into play there. Maybe used them a bit too much. We're going to see how much right side damage that car has, but he kind of, he slammed that wall.
Gonna get a look here. Maybe him and Johnny Gardner. Yep.
Gardner came in there really quick, though.
Schwallenberg couldn't get off the wall once he was on it.
Just kind of the difference in speed, again, as we mentioned, just the difference between tires. Really, Schwallenberg was on a longer pace, really a slower pace there just because of the older tires. Well, Johnny Gardner, remember, he wrecked that car early on due to a power issue. It's just on newer tires, so again, it's just the differential, it's just how dramatic, or how drastic those tires will be when it comes to the closing laps of the event here. When we get a late race caution, potentially, those new tires are going to kick into, really just come into play here.
It's kind of crazy to me. 5th fastest car got the doors blown off, literally, from Johnny Gardner, who's 38th on the board, which is, there's a huge difference, a second and a half off just raw pace that they're off. But when tire wear is a factor, the 32 team was quicker.
Huge. As you can see there, Cody Lamas reeling him in. Again, that just shows the difference. It really just demonstrates older tires versus newer tires here. Cody Lamas, again, we mentioned him second quickest there. No surprise there from Cody Lamas. As you see, there's teammate Luis Hernandez trying to catch his own teammate at Dylan Schwallenberg there. Those two staying for another year here together. DJ Curtis getting around Schwallenberg as well. They're 4th quickest, as we mentioned. Still kind of surprising to see these Martin cars do rather spectacular.
The top 10, as we close in with only 25 minutes left, you see it is Griffin, Lamas, Turner, Curtis, Schwallenberg, Davis. Slight contact there with Davis and Lamas, or Curtis and Lamas. And then we have, said Davis there in 6th, Harple, Mace, Rodriguez, and Weeks, the top 10. Going to run down a little bit. Sanford in 11th, Young 12th, Acosta's there in 13th, 14th Jake Bassinger. I haven't really talked about him much. Jake Bassinger's down in 14th. Dom Cap's been more quiet of the Martin cars. He's 15th best. Hernandez 16th. PJ Williams 17th. Jack Halleck in 18th. TJ Martin has jumped up to 19th. And Jeffrey Finguy's down to 20th.
As of right now, what would you say is the biggest surprise that you've seen so far in this session? We still have plenty of time to go, but out of all the teams, which one has surprised you the most?
I'm not sure it's really surprising, but I would say Roush Family Racing being as quick as they are. Seeing the engines that they're getting and being 18th best, and that their chassis isn't all that bad. With the engine they have, 18th best, it's a little surprising to me. How about you?
I am actually surprised of the Roush Family team as well. I mean, I think we can both mutually agree on just how much the progression has. Look at that. Oh man, they were really jamming up there, but yeah, Roush Family putting on a good statement here for both series here, as I mentioned. They're gonna be ones to look out for, maybe even to steal some top 20 runs here with that team, maybe even some top 15 runs. For Jack Halleck here. Halleck has a lot of talent in store here. That other Aussie could be one to look out for, maybe even get into a better ride potentially, or if Roush Family can build up to be a powerhouse team like those big teams in the series.
Looking deeper down, trying to find somebody to focus on. A little surprise to me still is Kyle Collins that he has still not found a good enough lap to really place him much higher than what he is. 34th best.
Yeah, kind of a shocker for Kyle Collins here. Normally you'd see him around the top 20 mark, but it just doesn't seem like he's got the car handled well in this test session here, so the Spotify Dodge not looking too good here at the moment here. Kind of a bit concerning there compared to his teammate Will Lewis in terms of pace. But again, these drivers are really just trying to focus on obtaining some data within the cars to see if they can really improve. When it comes to race weekends, there you see more cars, just again, the difference in tires come into play there. As you see James Richardson, we haven't really talked about him that much. Certainly first quickest as it seems for him. You see James Shelley now trying to get around here. James Shelley kind of putting on a good statement here, had a good late race momentum, late season momentum in the Fierce Sport team, and with him going to Turner Performance, it's a really big step up for James Shelley as well. But James Richardson coming up to the Cup Series here, kind of running around where the 34 car seems to run, despite obtaining the old Martin assets to when they left the Ford camp.
James Richardson really showed some solid speed on the road courses, but here on the ovals, they're barely struggling to get into the top 30 here, even though they are just ahead of the Turner Performance car of Caleb Hoffman. Hoffman still outside the top 30. We saw Martin jump into the top 20, but it's still kind of alarming to me that Caleb Hoffman is not finding that pace.
It really is concerning indeed. He did win Rookie of the Year. We mentioned that several times before for a reason. It takes a lot of effort to really earn that Rookie of the Year, despite the lineup not looking as good, and many would think that Hoffman would overpower, Dylan Schwalberg, but it was a lot closer than anticipated. I don't think many really expected to see others, other drivers really contend for him. Obviously, we saw like Casey Lester, Bobby Jones. We knew those drivers were going to be pretty good, but a lot of them would thought that Caleb Hoffman would throw the rookies out of the water in terms of the championship fight, but it really was a lot closer than it was anticipated from a lot of fans and critics alike.
Gonna look at some drivers we haven't really focused on just yet. Looking in at some drivers, there's Jose Mills, Cloud9 Racing, continuing to struggle 3/10 off of the next car, Josh Crash. There in the 29 car, Jose Mills still struggling with Cloud9 Racing, and just below him we talked about John Bunnell earlier. 40th best, but he qualified into this race on speed earlier in the year. And Bunnell, 40th, a little bit shocked, a little bit, not too shocked, but I thought that Bunnell would have been higher up on the sheets than I expected out of him.
Where would you think he would run up then, if I were to ask that question?
I thought Bunnell would be closer to a threat to where, where Blue Flare Motorsports is.
Ooh,
and
that's close.
35th. I thought maybe he'd be closer to 35th, but he's further off than I thought he would be. Even though it's only a 10th and a half off of where Eric DeMax is, and Eric DeMax is 35th, times are relatively close. You got to take that into consideration, but Eric DeMax has had a relatively decent test session where in the Montreal and Phillips Island test, but here at Atlanta, Rodriguez Racing kind of struggling a little bit.
Yeah, that kind of is a bit of a contrast compared to the Martin camp, despite John Art not really being as good as the other three drivers at the moment for the time being. But yeah, it kind of is concerning for the satellite team to the Martin camp for Rodriguez Racing there. And literally, they did bring this team up, so you kind of expect a bit low expectations, but not too low compared to the other startup teams. But you would think that team would probably at least be a top 25 car for the time being, at least for the first year as a new team, and with such huge help from the team, which Martin Motorsports never really has much affiliations with, many other teams in terms of the camp. But you would think that car would be a lot faster to see. He just gets around those other cars quite methodically, as it seems there. So Eric DeMax doing some good work that time around, but yeah, it is really concerning to see DeMax kind of this far down the time charts.
One driver that has jumped up recently, Bobby Jones in the Hero Motorsports car, has moved his way up into 11th.
Definitely still showing some good pace here. Bobby Jones really showcasing his talent as well. Really love the young stars migrating up to the Cup side, really bringing out their P's and Q's here, showcasing their speed and talent, that they all have their abilities in terms of being successful here. We could see a lot of these drivers in the future becoming a lot of good leaders and represent the series in a high note.
One thing I was just thinking about, all of the recent past champions of the Hardee's National Series You have Sean Harple, 2016, Dylan Schwellenberg, 2017, and 2018, Jake West. All of them here in the Sony Cup Series for 2019, making a full-time run. Does any of them drivers, do you think any of them will be able to shine as bright as they were in the Hardee's National Series for 2019? Think maybe like a Harple or a Schwellenberg that are in the top 10 here will be able to win races or even threaten for a championship run?
I wouldn't say just the champions themselves. I'd say some of the other regulars that kind of moved up to the series are going to be ones to look out for. I mean, I know Caleb Hoffman hasn't really done the best, but I think there's still a lot of speed that car could have. Bobby Jones, as you mentioned, he was actually a former Martin driver in the Hardee's National Series, and now he's doing pretty solid, as you mentioned, 11th quickest there. Luis Hernandez coming into the series, coming in the same as Dylan Schwalberg, moving up, who's also a former Martin driver here. So, I mean, they do have a lot of talent. It's just the matter of how they adapt to the cars here is the real question, really the big variable for them.
There's a bunch of Hardee's drivers that have started their careers off in Hardee's National Series and moved their way up the Cup. Dejon Weeks is one of them. Really showed a lot of success moving from the Hardee's Series up to the Sony Cup Series and won 3 races last year. Finished 5th in the point standings. And Dejon Weeks, 2019, the team has really hyped up 2019 as one of their years that they can try and win a championship and win even more races.
Oh, most certainly so. Yamp has also a pretty good lineup in their hands. Dejon Weeks, one of the bigger rising stars in the series and been on a hot streak, had a breakout year in this season. You see him coming down pit lane. Jordan Davis moving from the Mace team to the Yamp team here. And then you have a longtime veteran in that team, really, Dylan Young. Well, more or less, he recently came in there in 2017, but even so, Dylan Young having experience with the team as well. So really all 3 of those drivers have a lot to show forth here for the 2019 season there, and they could be ones to look out for in the championship.
One driver that is thinking of championship, that is Jake Bassinger. He wants to join the 5 drivers that are 2-time champions. We know Richard Johnson, Jacob Hart, Jordan Davis, DJ Curtis, and Nick Mace this year became a 5th champion, 5th 2-time champion. And Bassinger is one of the champions that are in this series that only has 1 championship. Bassinger wants to join that list of tied for most championships, and he's 5th on the board. But Bassinger, we've mentioned it in all the tests and even over the seasons, Bassinger's just been really quick. He's had he had 5 wins this year, 4 wins in 2017. That's 9 wins in the last 2 years. One of the most drivers that is known for winning a lot of races in the course of a season, but very, very inconsistent.
Yes, it really is just one of the major flaws for Jake Bassinger in terms of his principalities as a racer. He has the speed, but just doesn't really have the results, or really always has the results to really showcase that despite that 1 championship. Bassinger is a monster on the racetrack, but again, he just can't quite get the results wrapped in for that 97 team. He'll be good 1 week, and then he'll be bad the next week, and it's just a matter of when they can really fix that issue for Jake Bassinger so he himself can contend for a 2nd championship.
Looking through the field a little bit more here. Charles Sanford for Mace Enterprises, he has dropped out of the top 10. 13th.
Wow.
Still a little bit, he's still doing all right. They're still young 14th. Ryan Acosta is there 15th. Dom Capps, I think I expected a little bit more out of him, but still a solid run. He is not completely far off in terms of pace. He is only close to 3, actually closer to 4 tenths now off of Ryan Griffin, who is quickest. And we see Hernandez 17th, Williams 18th. Halleck and Martin rounding out the top 20.
Yeah, Dom Capps kind of really had a good first half of the 2018 season, but it just kind of didn't go as planned for him once the second half came in. He made a lot of mistakes there, just a lot of bad calls from Dom Capps and maybe even the crew chief there that really cost Capps a ton of ground in the championship fight. It pretty much caused him to fade within that championship fight near the end of the season there. While Mace was coming up, Capps was coming down.
I want to ask you something and get your thoughts on it. Martin Motorsports made a big move to Toyota after Toyota obviously been struggling. Ford's been the dominant manufacturer in the last few seasons, and it was very controversial for the team to even do that. Like, why would you leave a manufacturer that when you're one of the top teams, whenever you're one of the top teams, and you go to one of the slowest manufacturer teams? Why would you endanger your team to drop down the order where you possibly won't have the pace? That was a very controversial move, but do you think Martin Motorsports will be able to challenge for wins and be as fast as they once were? And if they can even challenge for a championship like they hope they can?
I think sooner or later they will. Maybe not this year, but I'd say maybe even like the years to come. Because sooner or later a manufacturer will showcase their dominance, or maybe even showcase the raw speed they could have in store. And it's just a matter of whether the Toyota really had a good leader, a leading team that can really represent their manufacturer in such a positive light. And it looks like throughout most of this, as we noticed that DJ Curtis and Matt Rodriguez have been, well, mostly Matt Rodriguez has been the quickest car, though right at the moment Curtis is. They really showcased the improvements that Toyota Camp has, and really the engines they could have. They're really exceeding those capabilities for Toyota as a manufacturer, so they're really giving it all they can here. So they could be ones to look out for maybe in like the years to come, like 2020, 2021. But you never know, they could surprise us here this year, or really 2019 in the Sony Cup Series. Maybe they could steal some wins here in the more technical tracks on the schedule.
Ryan Acosta just recently, last lap, jumped up to 9th best.
Yep, really good run for Ryan Acosta there. I do want to mention that the Dodges didn't start off good way back in the day there, but look at them now. Looks like Allen Family Racing also has really found a lot of speed lately too, and they had a really good late season charge in the 2018 season as well. So, I mean, Ryan Griffin is mentioned. Go ahead.
Ryan Acosta has always been what seemed like the team leader at Allen Family Racing Team. The team has always revolved around Ryan Acosta, really, because he's always been like the team leader, the one that would bring them to victory lane for a long, long time. Blasting past Josh Crash there, but Ryan Acosta, he's been there since 2015, long time. But now it seems like it's shifting from Acosta to Griffin, and you think that if that's going to phase Acosta any? I think like Acosta no longer being the team leader, it seems, over there at Allen Family Racing Team, because it looks like Griffin, a lot of the team is putting their eggs in the basket for Ryan Griffin.
I wouldn't really say, I think the Allen Family Racing Team are treat each other as equals, to say the least, though. Ryan Acosta, I would say, is more of a teacher, though, because, you know, newcomer Chris Dodd and also Ryan Griffin, remember, he's kind of, this is like his second year or third year in the Sony Cup Series, so even so, it's still a bit new for Ryan Griffin, but even so, it kind of shows, like, the amount of youth. Even though Griffin kind of comes in a bit old in terms of the late entries, but, I mean, they lack the experience compared to Ryan Acosta. Acosta may not have the speed compared to Ryan Griffin, but he seems to have more of the smarts compared to Griffin as well. So, again, Acosta has been more familiar with the series compared to both Griffin and Dodd, but, I mean, I'd say he's more of a teacher role, and Griffin is really showcasing the results that Acosta maybe have taught him, maybe find some tricks up his sleeve there. So I wouldn't count Acosta quite out yet in terms of the Allen Family Racing Team lineup here, so I wouldn't really quite put him under the shadows compared to Griffin here, because Griffin could be like another Jake Baskinger here, where he could be fast but couldn't quite get the results to show it.
So you think Acosta, who actually went winless for the first time since joining the team, you think you think both of them can win races?
I think it's possible here. I think Acosta is more of a strategist than he is in terms of race pace. So I think he tries to use the car much more to his liking. Maybe takes his time with it more, but maybe I would say a more conservative route compared to Ryan Griffin, where you notice his times are really kind of more aggressive and fast for a reason. You can be fast in one lap or so, but when it comes to a long run, you could really fade into the run. So it's a matter of how those drivers use their car properly and how they use their tires, their fuel management, and such, really. And also when it comes to pit stops and what they can do, give some feedback to their crew chief here, so they can find the proper adjustments there, so they can get the car to their liking here. Experience is pretty key here in the Sony Cup Series here, and if you're a solid driver, and if you're in the right car, you can get yourself in a good position to potentially snatch a victory or some good top 5 or top 10 runs.
you touched on that. Ryan Acosta, I think, showing it back to like 2017 at Chicagoland, he wasn't that quick. The team back then was not as quick as they are really showing now. They were more of an outside the top 10, more of a top half in the midfield. And Acosta really saved his tires late in the run. We had a long green flag run at Chicagoland, and he had the best tires out of anybody. And he had saved his tires and just blew by and took the win late in the going. And it's just one of those deals where Ryan Acosta just really plays his cards right. And I think for 2019, with some better horsepower that the team has provided for him, it seems, Acosta could get back to victory lane.
I'd say he'd be a decent, like a consistent player. Maybe not maybe for the championship hunt, but hey, you never know though, because we've seen drivers that we'd never think that would contend for the championship contend for a championship here. Ryan Acosta could be one of those few drivers that could surprise us here for the 2019 season. It's, as I mentioned, you can be fast, but you have to be smart with your race car.
We were really very concerned about the run for Caleb Hoffman, but he has jumped up to 22nd, just behind, actually tied with teammate TJ Martin for 21st and 22nd both. However, teammates, they're running in the top 5, Bassinger and Turner, and man, 3 wide. That was tight.
Not on
there.
those older tires there. You can just tell how slow that 99 is compared to those 3 cars that just sweeped on by there. But yeah, Caleb Hoffman climbing back up the charts here. Kind of not, as you mentioned, a bit it's tied with TJ Martin there, but yeah, I'm kind of surprised. Still kind of a bit surprised to see how kind of, I guess you'd say the right term would be mediocre those two are, but they're not bad drivers. Remember, everybody's a good driver. It's just a matter of whether you have the luck, the speed, and really the car and your capabilities.
See Nick Mace, the defending champion. I talked with Mace the other day that he thinks that this coming year is going to be his year, and really, it was his year last year. Well, I say last year, but this year for 2018, 7 wins, and just put on a clinic to run down Jesse Turner in the championship and take it away. And 35 wins, 2 championships. He has really done it all. One of the top drivers, arguably one of the best that has ever been in here. And he thinks a 3rd championship is possible.
I think it is possible as well. Nick Mace just coming off, as you mentioned, this year's championship, had a really amazing second half of the season. Turner cracked a bit under pressure there, and cracked a lot under pressure at the Roval. And we note that incident as one of the fundamental mistakes that cost Turner the championship. And then you had the Atlanta blow up for the 17 car there, which, again, really wasn't really any of Turner's doing, really. It's just more of just a freak mechanical issue that happened to the 17 car. And Turner, kind of, I would say he's looking back at it and really, I would say a bit hard on himself, but I wouldn't say so because he's going to be very determined to try and get that championship here. Redemption is imminent for that 17 car. It's a matter of whether he can actually execute it to try and find that championship here yet again.
You know, Allen Family Racing Team talked a lot of hype about their team in preparing for the new car and the new package, and that they think they can challenge, and they're really proving it here with Griffin. I have been so amazed at Ryan Griffin's performance. First in nearly almost everything almost. I mean, he was so quick at Montreal. Phillips Island, he wasn't quite there. I mean, he was still very quick.
Still within the top 10.
This here at the Oval, man.
It is just, I'm honestly not surprised at this rate, just to see how fast Griffin has become as a driver here. And it makes you question whether that Martin equipment really held him back or not, because not every car is going to be the same in terms of the team. They may have the same engines, but the amount of the setup, whether it's the setup, the adjustments, really anything, maybe they're not treated as well, maybe the chemistry lacks between them. It's just, that's the real question, because Ryan Griffin just really putting these time charts on fire, and in a lot of these test sessions here, he's really just dominated them.
This would come in down to nearly 2 minutes on the clock. Maybe we can see some late charges here on the sheets. James Richardson, Kyle Collins coming out. Collins really needs to try and make a good last change here. He's 35th, really hasn't made any gains at all, 35th best. That is something I'm a little surprised with, considering the pace Dodge has had in the test sessions.
Yeah, it really is a shame. Collins just kind of struggling, as I mentioned. We kind of talked about this so much with Kyle Collins. He just really struggled with the race car here. And it's not really come to his liking here. It's only Atlanta here, so again, merely a test session here. It might change a lot more once we get to the actual Atlanta race. As again, we might see some drivers maybe clock in some good times here near the end of this one, similar to that of Phillip Island. But again, we're going to have to wait and see.
Any of the top 10 drivers here that you may be surprised about?
I wouldn't really say so. I mean, Dylan Schwalbenberg, I'd say, would be the big highlight because, you know, you compare that equipment to he had last year. You know, they'd run around the top 25 range. Now they're up in the top 10 range with just new equipment there. Now they're in charge of an engine department, and good progress for really the Curtis Racing team, really as a whole, really, because both Schwalbenberg and Hernandez have really showcased some solid results. They're pretty close to each other in terms of speed. It's just Schwalbenberg seems to be the faster car most of the time compared to Hernandez, but Hernandez seems to pick it up more in the race.
Coming down to look at Collins. I'm watching him, see if he can't get a good lap down, but he's been held up by a few drivers that are on different strategies. But Griffin, the fastest one, not terribly surprised, but it has been very impressive to see that Dodge has been this quick in the test sessions, mainly with Griffin though. But Griffin, Turner, Lamas, Curtis, and Bassinger, that is your top 5. Then you see Schwalbenberg, Davis. You see Harple with Ryan Acosta and Nick Mace, and that is it for the session.
Quite a session there. We didn't really make incidences in the race. Besides the Phillip Island, so relatively clean session despite the wreck with Johnny Gardner and John Bunnell. But relatively a nice session, to say the least here. Looking down from 11th through 20th here, Matt Rodriguez 11th there, good run for him. Dejon Weeks 12th, Dom Capps 13th, quiet run for him. Bobby Jones 14th, Charles Sanford 15th there in the 24. Dylan Young rounds out 16th. Luis Hernandez 17th there. PJ Williams 18th, John Art 19th, and Jack Halleck, a surprise run there in 20th. Great run for Round Family Racing.
TJ Martin and Caleb Hoffman, teammates, are going to have to settle for 21st and 22nd in this test session. Their teammates were way up in the top 5, and they were just missing something. Even though they were only 2/10 off their teammates, they're still a ways down the order, and a lot of work to do for them. Jeffrey Finguy in 23rd, Will Lewis there in 24th, Chris Dawes 25th, Matt DeLeo with teammate Charlie Smith 26th, 27th, James Shelley, a one-off test session for him, in 28th spot. Jake West is 29th and 30th for Zachary Fitzwater.
We're going to go down for the rest of the field here. Jordan Fisher, 31st there. Zayden Davidson, another disappointing test session for him, 32nd. Eric DeMax, 33rd. James Richardson, 34th with a 34 car there. Kyle Collins, a struggling 35th there for the Horizon Group team. Hayden Klein, 36th. Doing better than Nick Pericles, who's in 37th. Johnny Gardner, 38th. Chris Louvier, 39th. John Bunnell rounds out the top 40. Then last but not least, we have Josh Crash, 41st. And Jose Mills rounding out dead last here in 42nd. Kind of concerning for the Blue Flare team. I do want to mention that again. 37th and 39th. They used to be one of the best midfield teams, but it looks like things aren't really going well for them when it comes to the adaptation of the new car.
And that is going to be it. So I'm pretty surprised with some of these drivers. Like we mentioned, I think, like we said, Dylan Schwalbenberg and Curtis Racing really finding the pace here. Schwalbenberg getting a little bit more out of this session than Luis Hernandez. I'm a little surprised with PJ Williams with CM Racing equipment there in 18th. Jack Halleck, Roush Family Racing Team, I think that is a fantastic run for them at 20th. And you see further down some drivers that are a little bit struggling here in this session that I am a little concerned about. Zayden Davidson is 1 in 32nd. And Kyle Collins, 35th, like you mentioned, the Blue Flare Motorsports cars. But overall, really no surprise at this moment, seeing Griffin up there in first, Turner second, his teammate, but they're in Bassinger fifth. But Lamas really proving everyone that if you give him a good car, he's going to be capable of doing great things there. He hasn't won since 2016. 2019 could be his year. Curtis showing that Toyota has some pace there in 4th. Davis there in 7th with his new team, having great sessions in December. And Harple having a good run there in 8th. Acosta the 9th, and Mace, the defending champion, in your top 10 too.
Certainly, no doubt. I think we had a test session here at Atlanta earlier within the year, but I think it just showcases the difference, the progression these teams have in store, and for Toyota, really as a whole. Despite mostly, I would say more in the Martin camp, though, you just notice the huge difference they had in speed. I think they were off initially near the earlier sessions of testing, but it looks like they really picked up their pace here. Toyota's really built up and really showcased their investment in the Sony Cup Series once more here with a powerhouse team moving over to Toyota camp.
And I want to point out something that is very interesting. Dodge 1st, Ford 2nd, Chevy 3rd, Toyota 4th.
So all 4 manufacturers looks like they're all going to be, I wouldn't say even, because we still have, the Fords I'd say are still kind of the dominant, but a Chevy won the championship at the end of the year. It's really the amount of who can manage their car the most. Really, they can find some more capabilities, more grip in the car, maybe even better chassis, engine settings, and all that. That's going to be really important here once the 2019 season commences.
And that is going to be it for this test session. I am so surprised that I got to the end of this live stream and my computer didn't crash. Oh boy.
Okay, it didn't.
No.
It didn't get there. It didn't crash yet. You almost jinxed it though.
All right. Goodbye.